Hello, I'm Jim Devlin. If you can believe, it's January 31st here in Central Texas. It's 80 degrees outside. It's a little hot. Just came back from an event, so that's why I'm still in uniform. Figured go ahead and knock out my demonstration video. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the demonstration of field stripping a Glock handgun. Glock handguns are what we carry here in our department. Every one of my officers must know how to do this, how to take their weapon apart, because it ensures the cleaning and the maintenance of the weapon, and also will provide for long life of the weapon, because again, these things really aren't that cheap. When you look at the manufacturer recommendations for cleaning one of these handguns, and there's several recommendations depending upon what kind of gun you have, but for the one we're talking about today, the Glock, they recommend that you clean the weapon, especially right when you get it, because it's going to be packed in grease and you need to make sure that you get all that stuff off before you do anything with it. At a minimum, they recommend once a month. So if you have a weapon like this and it just sits in your gun safe, they recommend that you pull it out at least once a month, take all the rounds out of it and clean it. And for us in law enforcement, we actually have a policy that says once a month. That's if we're not doing anything. But it may end up being more than that, because the weapons that we carry are exposed to the elements, the weather, the snow, the ice, the sun, the dirt, the humidity that we have. So the officers need to make sure that they take the weapons apart a little more often to clean them, and of course anytime after you fire the gun, as if we go to the gun range, they make sure that they're cleaned and maintained before they get back in service and back on duty. So let's talk about field stripping the weapon. Field stripping is really very simply just breaking the components into their main parts. And for the Glock, it really boils down to only a couple pieces. I have another Glock, not my duty Glock, but one that I carry off duty. But you have the base of the weapon, you have the slide, which sits on top of the base, and inside the base you'll have the barrel, and you have the recoil spring assembly. All these pieces are inside the top part of the weapon, and that's the basis of a field strip. So when we go through and demonstrate how to do it, some of the main things we're going to focus on are safety and keeping the weapon pointed to where you don't want it pointed. So in getting to that point, we're going to talk about how you break the weapon down to get into the field strip. So I'm going to go ahead and take my duty weapon out. It is loaded because I just got off work for doing something, so I know that there's a round in here because I loaded it myself. The first thing you want to do is point the weapon in a safe direction. Second thing you want to do is make sure you never put your finger on the trigger. You're always going to index your finger on the trigger. And pointing the weapon away in a safe direction, think of it this way: don't point it at anything unless you intend to destroy it. So we're going to point it away towards these trees where there's nothing at. First thing we're going to do is we're going to depress the magazine release. So that's this button here. We're going to go ahead and drop the magazine for the weapon. Take those rounds and go ahead and set them off to the side, leave them somewhere else. Now, because I know that there's a round in this chamber, we've got to clear it. What we do is, again, pointing in a safe direction, you're going to pull the slide back until it locks back into the locked position. And we're going to take that one round that's in the chamber out of the weapon. Okay? Once that round is out, you're going to visually and physically inspect this weapon. By doing it, you're going to look down, make sure that there's no round in the chamber and that there's no round in the magazine. Well, you're also going to take your finger and you're going to stick it in there in the chamber, make sure there's no round, and also stick it down, make sure there's no magazine present. If you have a partner, hand the weapon to them, let them inspect it to ensure that it's clear. Glock is one of these weapons that to pull the slide off, you're going to have to pull the trigger, so that's why it's so important that we make sure there's no rounds in there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to let the slide go forward, back into that position. In the manufacturer recommendation when you buy the gun, in order to get this slide off, you're going to have to pull the trigger. You have to make the firing pin fall forward. So again, pointing in a safe direction, pull the trigger, that's the firing pin going off. Now we know that the weapon's clear, it didn't go bang, and we're ready to disassemble. We're going to change the grip on the weapon. What we do is you take your four fingers onto the top of the slide and you put your thumb on the back strap of the weapon. What you're going to do is you're going to pull back on the slide 1/10 of an inch, and then simultaneously you're going to reach up and you're going to get the slide lock and you're going to pull it down and get the slide to release. So you pull it back, pull the slide lock down, and let the slide come off of the gun. All right? Base of the weapon, we're going to take that, set that off to the side, and then we're going to talk about the rest of the components of the weapon for the field strip. As you can see, the slide is all intact, and we're going to basically show you the same pieces I just showed you a little bit ago. The recoil spring assembly, you're going to take and push up and pull out, set that off to the side. The barrel, you can push up and pull out, set that off to the side, and then you have the slide. That essentially is a field strip of a weapon. We do this to ensure that it's cleaned, that it is properly oiled, and we do that to the manufacturer's specifications. You will find that the more oil you put on it, the more problems you're going to have. So it's a little bit of oil. Once the weapon is thoroughly cleaned, and use a good solvent to get all the lead and things and contaminants off the weapon after you shoot it. Basically goes around any moving part that's within the weapon. You don't dunk it in oil, but you put enough on there to lubricate it when the action goes back and forth. If you do put too much oil on it, you're going to have contaminants adhere to the oil, stick, and then you may have a malfunction and the weapon may not operate properly. So again, when we do this at work, we actually will inspect the weapons to ensure that they're properly cleaned and properly lubricated, and then we put them back into service with the officer. That's really it in the demonstration video. In conclusion, the real reason that we're going to do this is for the long life of the weapon. Make sure that we have it for a long time. We don't have to spend a whole lot of money in buying them. The other thing is to make sure that it works whenever we actually need it to work. And in our business, that could be a very important time. Thank you.